Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Berkshire Media Show. I'm here today with Jacob from Escape Reading. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How you doing? Doing good?
I'm absolutely wonderful. And thank you very much for coming in today as well. I think today it's going to be quite an exciting one. Today we are going to be talking about the place in which you manage Escape Reading. So, first of all, Jacob, tell me a little bit about Escape Reading.
So we're an escape room company based in Reading, surprisingly. We opened up in 2016 with our first location, then opened up a second one in 2017, and we're still open now. We've had 7 rooms in total. Currently, we have 5 rooms open, and yeah, we're going good. Little independent company, and we're surviving. We survived COVID, and we're surviving now.
What's the kind of industry like in terms of escape rooms? Maybe in Reading and also slightly wider in the UK.
I think I think it's a pretty wholesome community for the most part. It's a really nice industry in itself. That obviously it's an entertainment industry. So obviously the customers we deal with are typically in very high spirits. But even the relationships between company to company, independent companies at least, is really nice and positive. Like for example, Reading alone, there's 5 companies, and we're all really good friends with each other. We go for drinks and stuff because there's not that same level of competition like other companies, because once you play an escape room, you can't go back. You might play a company's 4 rooms or so, but it's very unlikely you're going to replay. So we're always recommending different companies, and if some people play like one of our rooms and I see all the things they prefer, I might recommend them to one of the other companies in Reading or anywhere across the world, because in the last 5 years or so, escape rooms have really blown up everywhere. Mm-hmm. So
Gotta say, that's a characteristic you don't see in any other industry, really. Because I suppose for a lot of people, it's me versus you. But what you say is absolutely correct. I suppose once you've done one escape room, there's no use in not giving the customer the experience of another one and recommending. In terms of you personally, other than the escape rooms within your place, Escape Reading, what's your favourite escape room that you've been to?
So that's like a real rough question, because I feel anyone who's played like quite a few rooms, it's hard to choose like a number one. It's usually like because different things do things, like different places do different things like really well. So one place might have like a really insane like sound, the sound that's very memorable and stuff. But I do actually have an answer for this question, despite what I've just said. One of my favourites at the top of my head is in the Netherlands. It's we played it last year, called Molly's Game. I think it was number 1 or number 2 escape room in the world a couple of years ago or last year. It's almost certainly in the top 100 this year. But yeah, that was like it's called Molly's Game, and it was like a horror escape room, and it was independent, built by this one guy, and it blew my mind. Me and the owner, we stayed up that night and the next couple of days scribbling on paper how they did certain things, trying to work out. We think we worked out how they did it. We will never know. We were up all night like trying to work out how did they do this exact thing, how did they make this special effect happen. And when you leave an escape room, generally just upset because you'll never make anything like that. We want to come back and shut down the business. We were like, no, we've seen it. Obviously it was it's the best, but that's now turned into it really opened our eyes what can be done. So if anything, that's probably my number 1 escape room, because that's only made me much more passionate about the industry and about where we want to go forward with what we do in the future, really.
Mm-hmm. And like I say, you're the manager of Escape Reading, so you are familiar with the whole format of escape rooms and whatnot. For you, what sticks with you more? Is it the kind of immersion that you get within a certain escape room, or is it the actual puzzles and the method in which you need to get out?
It's different per. I'd say that's very like particular per person, because some people obviously really prefer the puzzle. However, I think the immersion for me is probably the most important part, because for me at least, the way I'm starting to see escape rooms is closer to immersive theatre and almost like an art in itself, rather than what I think it might have been 5 years ago, 6 years ago or so, when it was more like a Crystal Maze-esque, just solving puzzles kind of thing. Because don't get me wrong, like you can definitely have a mix of the two, but for me, what makes a good escape room is memorable, things that make you go wow, and if you can make puzzles that do that, so their solution is something that makes you amazed and exciting, which I think is the case, that's when I think you've got something golden. There's a bit, and like, you know, it completely varies. For me, for example, I'm not very good at maths. I don't enjoy maths. We have no math puzzles in our rooms for a reason. But yeah, if I ever solved a puzzle with maths related and it made me go wow, then I think that's a room to be remembered for, to be honest.
You know, it makes sense. And I've got to say, in terms of the kind of theatre aspect that you just described, when you said that, instantly reminded me of a place like London Dungeons, where you go, you feel like you're there, or even, I don't know if you've been to certain museums, I think that in the British War Museum, they've got the trenches area. When you're there, you feel like you're in it. But when you make that connection between an experience like that and an escape room, where you have to use your own kind of intelligence, your own intuition to escape, I can imagine that being a bit more of a appealing experience, especially if you've done one before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's funny to say that. I think London Dungeons have recently opened up their own escape room.
Really?
And for me, that's why I've started seeing escape rooms. And I know it sounds super bigoty or whatever, but like to say like it's now like, for me, escape rooms are now like an art form, which sounds very, you know, like a generic or something. But because for me, it's not only is it just an immersive experience, but it's massively interactive. So not only are you just experiencing it and watching these things happen, you are, the only way you're progressing is by doing stuff. Obviously with clues and stuff, we will try and help you along the way to push you ahead, but it's a case of if you're only going to see the whole experience if you put the effort in, and you have to really physically get involved. And that's what I love about it, because you really feel like it's not like a cinema where you're watching a film, like, because a film can make you immersive, you can feel like you're there. Mm-hmm. But when you're actually interacting with the things in the room, you feel like you're really there and stuff. Like I think that's what really makes a big difference. So that's what, when we hopefully, you know, as we build our most recent ones and the new ones we go in future, we're much more looking at it as an immersive experience with puzzles, but those wow things come first, I think, and puzzles second. That's just how we build them. And that's the great thing about having so many companies, because everyone builds things differently. Some people might go puzzles first and then do the setting afterwards.
So in terms of actually coming up with new rooms and stuff, how does that work? How does the design process work? How does the building process work? Can you just kind of run me through that? Yeah,
so I've got like a huge scrapbook that I just write in and write ideas. Either like literally that kind of Doc Brown-esque waking up in the middle of the night, just scribbling ideas down. My partner the other day, it can be the silliest things, but it can start from nothing. Like I say, I think she literally made a joke. Like Ice Cream, that could be like a horror name, like Ice Cream. And I was like, yeah, you should do an escape room round, like a horror ice cream thing. And I was like, there's a, you know, just like a thought experiment. I was like, all right, what would I do? And then, you know, just scrabble in like a book, like a diagram, and what you do and what would be the wow thing for that. That's how I do it. I draw a rough layout of a room, which can be randomized, which is, if anything, is the worst thing you can do, because you don't know the room until you rent somewhere or buy somewhere. And then just try and think, what's the setting, what's the theme, what are the wow things you want there, and what story do you want to tell? And then that's when the puzzles will come in. For me, puzzles are very much like a last minute thing, and when we've done the rooms in the past, there might be a few big puzzle wow ideas and later, but yeah, for me it's kind of just get a feel from a vibe and the story you want to tell, and how do you get the players from point A to point B in a creative way that's going to be memorable, exciting, and not just feel like a walking tour or just like them looking down reading paper for an hour. I've even started like cutting out, I've got a shoebox and using cardboard, like made like walls, made secret doors and sliding walls to try and see how we would make things work. It's become a big hobby in that regard, in my spare time, just making escape rooms. But that's how I do, at least. Sometimes we have in the past worked backwards in the fact of we've had a location, found a space, and then what does the space kind of look like and what could it fit? So, for example, one of our rooms in the basement, actually at this location at the Queen's Walk, when we were clearing out the basement, it was all very brick. It was underground, it had these high ceilings, and the brickwork looked very reminiscent of the London Underground. Mm-hmm. So we're just like, well, that's the setting done. Saves so much money on set design as well. Yeah. And then that's when we started thinking of what we can do, and then we decided we're going to do London Underground. That's cool. How do you make the London Underground exciting? How can we explain, imperfections, and made it a construction site in the underground, and then we ended up making it loosely tied to like a World War II blitz, like a bomb, like a bomb that had been found in like the construction of a new tunnel. Mm-hmm. And that kind of worked the opposite way around how we normally work. So yeah, it can vary massively.
So in terms of escape rating, how many rooms have you got now?
So we currently have five rooms, so 3 in our Queen's Walk location, 2 in our Audley Street location. So the Audley Street is Ram Raid and Age of Magic, and our Queen's Walk location we have Kidnapped, Blown Away, and Vampire Slayers. We also have 3 portable experiences. So in lockdown, we like a lot of people, we didn't know if we were ever going to open again. So we built these games that can last like half an hour to an hour, and we can set them up at like weddings, big group events, work events. We even set them up actually a couple times down at the Allied Arms in the town centre, the little pub there, and did a few nights. So we got 3 different portable escape rooms, and then 1 online one. So we've got a variety. We used to have two older escape rooms, but as time passed, we got rid of those and replaced them.
You mentioned online ones. How do you kind of manage that remotely?
So the online ones work. So the one we have, it works. It's just basically like a web link program. Basically, it's a very simple, almost like a point and click adventure. So the one we have is very basic. It just runs itself because, like I say, it's just clicking on the right things and typing in the right answers and stuff like that. So that works pretty perfect. And you just buy that online, then we send you the actually, I think actually the online one might be free now. I think we made it free. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, the online one, you can you download it offline, or you just go to a link online. But I know there are some that are a lot more involved, and that might have like live messaging through like Facebooks or text numbers and stuff. But yeah, that's the way we do it. Just because I think for us, our passion lies more in like the physical of building stuff kind of thing. Building Lego is way more fun in person. You can do it online if you want, but we like the physical stuff.
Got a tough question for you. Out of the 5 escape rooms you have, which is your favourite and why?
Okay, yeah. So that is rough. I've got like a personal favourite, like just for like I got like a personal one for like emotional reasons, and then one for sheer. So I'd say probably to answer that question. My favourite one is Age of Magic. So that's our newest one. That's that opened up in 2021 or 2022. They're COVID years, so they don't really exist. So I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we opened that one, and that room took 2 years to build. So Blown Away, Vampire, and Kidnapped all took about 6 weeks to, I'd say roughly about 6 weeks to build or so. Ram Raid took 1 year. Age of Magic took 2 years to build. So
really?
Age of Magic, we put a lot of effort, but that one also took the most time. It took a lot of work. I think it also cost 4 times the amount of any of the other rooms, so that also, the monetary love for the room as well.
Yeah, of course.
But for me, at least, walking through the finished product was just insane. It really. So I walk in there now, I'm surprised that it's one of our rooms, to be honest. Just because the way it looks, we really went for the set building, and I think that room in particular was storytelling and immersion first. Definitely, I don't think at this point in time, like for what we want for storytelling and in future, like I think we only want to improve from there. We only want to get better, and that's kind of how the rooms work. The older ones, I think we choose things and we get better and better, and hopefully by the next ones we build, they'll be even better. We say that though, is that although Age of Magic is my favourite one and it's the newest one, we get a lot of teams. We could have a team of 5 play all of our rooms, and I guarantee you each one will say a different room.
Really?
Kidnapped is the oldest escape room in Reading, and I get so many teams saying that's their favourite one. And I'm just like, wow, like it's just bizarre to think like 6 weeks of work can equal 2 years. But for me, Age of Magic just blows my. I like that room a lot. If that's my personal favourite, if you go from customer bookings, Kidnapped gets the most bookings out of all of our rooms, but I think that's just the name because Kidnapped sounds exciting. You know what you're in for. In terms of like awards, Ram Raid, all of our rooms bar Kidnapped have been in the top 100. Have been in the top 100 UK escape rooms.
Really?
Ram Raid was the 14th, I think, in last year or the year before. But yeah, Ram Raid ratings wise is our highest rated room. But yeah, I think Age of Magic for me.
I can't imagine what it must be like for you, because obviously, you're in this industry, having this idea, this concept, and then after 2 years of building and building and building, you finally see this finished product. What does it actually feel like to you when you step in for the first time?
stepping into the room, it feels great if everything's working. Because oh boy, there's a lot of probably at least after it's finished a solid 2 months of just testing. So getting your friends, family, even quite often actually we mainly go for other owners of escape rooms as well, like who we're friends with, and then their staff, and certain enthusiast groups who we're friends with and stayed in contact with. We get them to come back and test it, because that's when you really learn about your room. So it feels amazing walking through that room, but you are terrified because these really are like your babies, because you've made them and you're kind of scared to share them because you're scared, what if they don't like it? What if this idea? Because the problem is when you build it, you never actually get the opportunity to experience it as a first. So you've got all these great ideas and you think it's great, and then you have to wait for a plane and be like, oh, this didn't actually come off how you think it did. Actually, it actually isn't as fun as you think, or like, not that we've ever happened specifically, but you are terrified. So it feels great when you're finished, but you kind of know it's more like one chapter of work's finished, the next chapter is really beginning. Because even after Kidnap's been open for 5 or 6 years, we still change things in the room every now and again, update them and make them better, or replace stuff, because a room is never finished. Because the minute you stop, you stagnate. So you've got to keep improving it. And even customer suggestions, we change things up every now and again, because you can always improve stuff. So yeah, feels good when you finish it.
Yeah,
but realistically, we're halfway there. Then now we've got to see what we have to do and what we have to fix in future.
But I think it says a lot about kind of the nature of the way you guys work, in the sense that you've obviously worked super, super hard to get this exactly the way you want it, but you're still happy to take feedback from customers and stuff. So happy to tweak it later down the line. Now, in terms of kind of your steps towards escape rooms and stuff, how did you stumble across Escape Red, and how did you become the manager of the place?
When I left sixth form, around the time I was actually working for a immersive theatre company called Z Events, who used to be in Reading, and I was like so for a good couple years I was like a zombie actor, like a professional zombie actor, and did like a few little TV spots and stuff. But we when that, unfortunately, the building we were in, there's a big abandoned mall, and that got knocked down, and it was heartbreaking. So I completely, and that actually was like at one point essentially my was like kind of my full time at the time after school. So when that closed, I just didn't know what to do with myself. I was kind of like, well, I've got these skills in such a niche part of the world. Like, well, what do I do? Do I now go into like film, TV? Do I try like go into like set design maybe? I don't really know. And then I literally walked past the building here, the Queen's Walk one, and just looked at it, because it even says like real life escape game, and I was like, well, I don't really know what this. And it probably says more about our advertising. I didn't know what it was, so I was confused. I didn't know what an escape room was. And none of these escape room movies had come out at this point, so I was just like, I had no idea. So I just went home, looked at the website. I just sent an email, and the next day came in for like an interview. It just so happened that the second location that I went to had only just really opened. And yeah, played my first escape room that week. And yes, coming be 6 years in November now that I just stuck there. And then after doing it for about like a year, I was like, yeah, I really like this. And yeah, been there ever since, just really, really enjoying it. Got really good met some really cool people along the way. Even had a few of my friends work there as well with me when we've needed staff. Like, I've see if I want to jump in. At this point, me and my boss we're really good friends. We even do little like staff trips together now, like to go play escape rooms. Yeah. Because we're like an independent company, I'd say it's pretty relaxed. I think the manager status, if anything, is just basically just to let new staff know, being like, if you have any problems, you can also just call this guy instead of me all the time, like the owner all the time. So yeah, I'm basically part of the decor now. But it's really nice because even though like it feels very personal to me, like I want to like do everything and try and help out with as much as I can. And I think that's got, like I say, very good friends like the owner, and like through that allowed me to stay there and live pretty comfortably doing the work there, and being now part of it where we are like building stuff, and we are deciding like together what to go do with the company moving forward and stuff. And I see myself at this current point being there for the foreseeable, unless all escape rooms drop off the world.
In terms of kind of the trajectory of escape rooms, you mentioned this was the first in Reading.
So it was the Alder Street location was the first in Reading, very closely followed later on by another independent, Time Trap that are in Reading as well. who opened us a couple pop-ups in Reading beforehand. And then, yeah, I mean, very recently, then there was a very quickly after that, we have more companies as well, like Knockout and Deadlocked as well, which is awesome. It's really nice to see that escape rooms now are so popular because now they're everywhere now. Like there's like there's Basingstoke, Windsor, I think Slough, Wokingham.
And just out of interest as well, a lot of places and a lot of industries were affected by COVID. In terms of the escape room kind of industry, what would you say the main effect was?
I mean, the main effect was because of it was entertainment and it was indoors. It was the very first thing to close and the very last thing to open. So I think there was I couldn't tell you the exact dates, but anytime there was any kind of lockdown, closed. No one knew when it would open. So yeah, and we only make money when there's people in the building. So I know a lot of companies who did unfortunately weren't able to open up after that. That's why we started making the portable escape rooms just as a last ditch effort in case. Thankfully, with all like the government help, we were able to survive, and we thankfully were very, very smart. Well, not smart intentionally, just happened to be, but I'll take it as smart. That we had quite a good amount of savings. We had a very good couple of years before COVID, really good our peak. So we had a lot of good money, and that was actually just before COVID. We closed our 2 oldest rooms that were at Audley Street. So that allowed us the entire time whilst we were closed, although we couldn't be making money, we could use the savings to help keep us alive for that period, like rent and stuff like that, because we still had to pay rent and all the service charges and things like that. But it actually allowed us to build our newer rooms. So Ram Raid and Magic we built in lockdown, so we were able to keep busy and go in still and construct the games. Yep. Which is kind of perfect because it didn't feel like we were losing a location during COVID. And then by the time COVID lifted, we could then open these two rooms. But yeah, it was really scary though, because we really were building them not knowing if they'd ever see the light of day, because we had the backup of we could potentially lose one location and then keep this one. But thankfully it never came to that. And it's never been the same since. And I think every escaping company can confirm that, like, no one's really seen the numbers since. I think we got close maybe last year, but yeah, it's been pretty quiet ever since. But it gets better. It definitely, obviously, summer holidays have been great because summer holidays, but pre-COVID, I'd say we were almost, we'd be close to fully booked, every single weekend for sure. Weekdays are pretty busy, almost, over half booked. These days on quieter months, it can be extremely quiet. It can be some days empty. But I think that's very similar for a lot of entertainment stuff. I mean, you even see it with cinema and theatres, don't you? Like, even that's still only just starting to get a few films that are breaking the same numbers that it used to.
Yeah, and like I say, I think it's the type of thing where, because there's so many kind of, as you say, independents in the area, and you've all got the type of relationship where once you've done one, don't have to do the same one twice, you can point somebody else in that direction. Do you ever say you kind of benefit from that relationship by other people visiting one of the other escape rooms, then subsequently being recommended to come and see yours afterwards?
Yeah, massively. Like, I mean, even just the talks we have when we go for drinks with the other owners and stuff. If we ever have problems or something, quite often, like, one of the other companies have had a similar problem, whether it be like a customer interaction maybe, or just quite often, talking about, like, is it just you guys getting low bookings or something like that? But yeah, even with customers, like you said, yeah, it's great because everyone likes different things for different reasons, and I think Reading's actually a really good example of each company are good at different things. So yeah, so I think it's really good because there are some customers I get, and after they've played like all of our games, hearing what their favourite one of our rooms would be, I can very quickly be like, oh, well, I actually think you might really like this other independent company in the area, for example. And I'll direct them to them because we all do things very differently and we're very different companies, and that's what makes it great, because customers kind of find it sometimes hard to pick and choose because they're like, well, it's hard to compare because they're so different. So yeah, I think it massively helps. Also, I think, the slight competitive angle, like, because of course there's always going to be not competitive in terms of getting business, but it's almost like you obviously if you get some guys talking about how good one thing was and they really enjoyed it, you're like, oh, that's true, we're not good at that, so we should get better at that. And I think that healthy competition between all the companies is more so that helps just you improve yourselves. You're not trying to improve yourself to beat the other company, you're just trying to improve yourself, because I don't think we would be the company we are today, especially about the newer rooms, if it wasn't for, like, not only just learning ourselves through just our own business, but just being able to talk and hear, and just see what else happens in the area, because it's not really a case, and you very rarely get that anyone really steals ideas or steals, because it is, I think it's also like it's just not, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, so no one really does that. At least the friendship group we've got within, I say the Reading companies, there's no real stealing, but it's just more that thing of like, you play rooms, oh yeah, we could do better, or we could, we can do better than what we've done already, and yeah, it's really good, healthy competition. But we're all really good friends, and yeah, I don't think anyone would have it any other way. Like it's a really nice dynamic, and not a dynamic I've ever seen in any other like company I've ever worked with before. It's super refreshing. I'm also someone who hates confrontation, so that's perfect for me. So yeah. It's good.
Well, I've got to say, I'm somebody who's done escape rooms before, and it's quite interesting being able to speak behind the curtain and speak to you, because as a customer walking into an escape room, somebody who's doing it doesn't know too much about escape rooms and just wants to try something new. It's almost like every single square inch of an escape room looks like it's exactly where it's meant to be, and you almost feel as though you're walking into something which has been designed with such thought. So, just out of interest, in terms of actually designing the rooms and building the rooms, how many kind of people does it take to get a room from empty to escape room ready to go?
It massively varies, because there's certain things. So, for example, the actual room design itself. So, especially a lot of like the early rooms, I'd say pretty much most of them though. Pretty much a lot of the early ones were all my boss, the owner, Thomas. Like literally, his ideas like going through and like designing them and putting them in place.
But by himself?
Even actually like. Yeah, so like say
Wow.
like him, obviously like his wife at the time as well, like helped him out. So when they opened up in Audley Street, everything themselves. So
wow.
Obviously there's limitations. So obviously in those rooms there was very little tech. It was all very like padlock heavy and stuff, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, like some of my favorite rooms, I say, are very padlock heavy. Yeah, all themselves, everything from buying IKEA furniture, putting things up, painting the walls. There might be not any super like wow effects with those early rooms, but because at the time that was almost pretty common, because that's what escape rooms were like in the UK then. They really have, and I think that's why I really like independents, because you'll see with quite a lot of independent companies, they have that nice warmth to them, because you can kind of see that they are handmade, like not handmade in like that it looks rugged or well used or anything. Handmade because they've made it themselves. They've had to make sure every detail, they're doing every detail, so everything is what they're doing. So with our more recent rooms, the more staff we got, the more kind of people who started helping out. So mainly, once again, mainly the owner Thomas, like his ideas and stuff, and we had a gentleman who used to work with us as well, and he loved like doing his like electrical work and stuff, and he also did like a lot of like building stuff. So that then allowed us to do much more like building bigger frames and structures and using like more tech-based puzzles. Mm-hmm. So then that allowed us massively. So that kind of, I'd say a lot of the rooms are basically like two people built and constructed. Every now and again, we might get like one of my friends. He's like his family like artists and stuff. So we've just got them in to do a little bit of paint work, because we're no good at that, but they love that stuff. And if I can help another kind of independent, amazing. We had a guy who used to work for us who was a coder. He loved coding, so he actually coded some stuff for us as well. Once again, another way to help someone's personal interest, helps their portfolio if they're making one. But yeah, all of them have been a very small team made in-house. There are some big negatives to that, unfortunately. The fact that we definitely learn through trial and error, which isn't great. And that we had a lot of problems with Magic, because that's a very tech-heavy room. And when you're working with very expensive tech-based and like electricals, yeah, just learning through trial and error, you go through a lot of your budget that way. But it works now. It works good. But that's the problem by not outsourcing it and by not having a bigger work, bigger professional like work team, or like outsourcing the work, because we learn ourselves and teach ourselves those skills. Now we've learned them, we're confident that we won't run into those problems when we build new rooms. But yeah, and that's the nice thing with the 7 rooms. With each room, from a technical standpoint, they've improved because we've only learned more things and started including more things as they go on. Mm-hmm. However, from people playing the rooms, that doesn't always necessarily mean it makes it a better room. We just find if like other owners and builders would be like, okay, this one's more technical, I can see that. Your average customer isn't going to see that. They're just going to be like, which one's more fun? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, depending on how you built the room, your room could have no tech in it and just padlocks and be just as enjoyable as a very expensive room. For us, at least, it's a very small team. I'd say usually 2 to 3 people, if that. reason why it probably took us 2 years to build one of the rooms. Like, yeah.
It blows my mind though, because again, the thing that comes to mind when you say that is it seems more like a passion project.
Oh yeah.
When it's a smaller team, when it's especially a husband and wife who've got kind of a vision of what they want. In terms of kind of the target audience, who do you usually find is the typical person to come and visit Escape Reading?
That's a question we've been trying to ask ourselves for years. It's bizarre. I think if on pen and paper, we probably would have said 20 to probably like 20 to like 40, maybe on like paper. However, after working in this for like 5 years plus, I don't think you can. I don't. It's hard to explain because we've had teams of all ages, like all types of like anyone play, and I've seen just as many people of like every age demographic enjoy it and like not enjoy it more so because if you don't enjoy it because it's physical and solving puzzles might not be their thing and being under pressure. On our website, the one age restriction we do say is you have to be above like 14 plus. If everyone is above the age of 14, you might not need an adult kind of thing. Which sounds like a weird age, because why 14 plus? Why not like 18 or like 16 kind of? And that's just because in the years, you just find we've just had so many instances where like some young players can be phenomenal. Actually, in my memory, we had a team of it was a team of 5 girls, and I'm pretty sure they were about 8 or 9. And their mum came and they played one of our rooms. And whenever we get a group of very small children, we're like, they're not going to enjoy it. This isn't really daycare, and these are designed for like adults, like Crystal Maze. It's designed for adults, and I real judged that book hard by the cover. But they went in the room and they annihilated the game.
Really?
One of the games to the point where like very few hints, like probably in the top 10% of like teams of like how well they did.
Really,
they ended up playing like a lot of our games in the next few months. And I remember the next time I said to the mum, like, don't worry, like, this is an exception, don't go in, because, like, you're a spare part to this team and you're slowing them down. Yeah. They're like, no, I really want to see how well they do without me. And there they, once again, annihilated the room, and I couldn't believe it. So sometimes you get these teams who do blow your mind. We've had teams who have been like, we had a couple of teams who have all been like a mixture of like players who are like 80 and 90. Mm-hmm. And obviously they're a bit slower physically, but when they're enjoying it, and by the end of the game, in the last 10 minutes, I've seen this lease of life coming where they're running around like kids, and it's almost like they've forgotten. Obviously, by the end, they feel it. But so it's really hard to put like an age bracket on it.
I think that says a lot, though.
Yeah.
It says a lot about the kind of how flexible and how an escape room is kind of welcoming for people of any kind of demographic and stuff.
It really comes down to more your mentality, maybe I'd say, and like your willingness to just get involved. Mm. Because I definitely find, for example, I've had teams where someone might play as like a work do and a staff do, and they have a great time, but take that same player who enjoyed it as like a staff do, let them play with their friends, and because like the mentality is different, they do so much better and faster when they're with their own friends, because there is that just that slight mentality change that it's not related to work kind of thing. And like, I think that's really what it is. I think for the kind of person who just wants a bit of an adventure, something different, and you just apply yourself no matter what. The amount of people we've had who really go in grumpy because their families dragged them along, like dad who doesn't want to go, or granddad, or sister who doesn't want to be there but forced to do family time, and really try to hate it, and then by the end of it they're all giggling and enjoying it because they just got dragged into it and ended up enjoying it, and they loved it by the end of it because they applied themselves. I think that's what matters. It doesn't matter like what age you are, what kind of person you are, as long as you apply yourself and you're just willing to give it a go, and you get into it. And you're there to have fun. I think the teams who definitely fall flat and the teams who definitely don't enjoy it, or who at least like lose a bit of it themselves, is worrying too much about the hour and it being a competition. Mm-hmm. And that's why the way of escape rooms for me is it's more about the immersive theatre and enjoyment. It's not about completing it. It's not, well, of course, completing it, but it's not about you're there to have fun. You're not there to try and like smash the game with no clues and smash it in record time, because that's not fun. It's not a competition. It's a race, but you're just there to have fun and just have fun. Because if you're enjoying it and you have a good time with the clues and the immersive and stuff, and you're applying yourself, you're gonna have a good time. If you're there because you don't want any help and you just want to complete it because you want to have that thing of we did it, we smashed the time, you're probably not going to have a good time because you're treating it too much like a test rather than just a fun social activity.
I've got an interesting question for you. So, in terms of the types of people who come and visit your escape room, if you had a team of 2 people compared to a team of 6 people, I know it depends on the people and how they approach it, but who do you think would be more likely? A team of 2 who obviously have 2 minds but maybe slightly more in sync, or a team of 6 minds who might have slightly different ideas?
Oh, so it really depends the team. Like it really comes if they're both first timer teams. So if they're both like this, both their first escape room, team of 6 every time. I think the more escape rooms you play, you should start playing in smaller groups. So if you've played, I've played like 171, and I will only play really. I only really like playing in a team of 2, a maximum of 4. Just because if you have too many people, you not only start to do a little bit worse, but you're not going to enjoy it because you're going to miss so much. If it's your first time playing and you've only played a couple rooms, I wouldn't recommend playing as a team of 2 because there's only 2 of you. They are designed to be difficult. And if you're in a smaller team of 2, you're going to get a lot of clues probably, and it can get frustrating getting like a lot of clues. And there's only 2 of you, and there's so much to do. If there's multiple things to do, because if the room's non-linear, there's only 2 of you. You can't do multiple things. You want to stick together. And like you said, if they're 2 like-minded people, they might quite often only see things from one perspective, so they're going to find it harder. Team of 6, all different mindsets. They're going to see things in different abstract ways. One person might be a bit more like logical, some might be more creative. I'd say in general, a team of 6 will do better. Now, if it was a case of it's a team of 2 who have played 20 rooms and a team of 6 who have played no rooms, or even like 5 rooms, I think the team of 2 might do better because you're a bit more organised than the team of 2. But it completely, I think some of our record times for all of our games, I think, are in the top 3 for all of them, are like team of 2 or teams of 6.
Yep.
I think it's the in-between that kind of gets lost. It's either a team of 6 are really good and they smash it, or 2 people can be the most efficient way. So yeah, it depends on people.
In terms of kind of your role as the manager, what does a typical day in the life of Jacob look like?
I'd say a big thing is checking, emails, phone calls. Typically, like taking those things. A lot of like inquiries, setting up like events, managing the staff, of course, like making sure we have people. So every company works differently in how staff manage games. So the way we do it is we have 1 staff member, like for a day, 1 staff member per room. So the same person will meet you, talk to you, get to know you, brief you health and safety, run the game and be watching you the entire time, and then greet you at the end. Because for me at least, for escape rooms, the room is 60% of the experience. A solid 40 and sometimes 50% of the experience is the person who introduces you. The amount of rooms I've played that have been phenomenal, but it's the person you've met has just ruined it. Not because they've been rude, but they've just not got that energy. That's why. So we have 1 person per room. So 5 games, I can make sure we have 5 people, 5 people on each day, and then phone calls, stuff, running games. So I do work, 5 days a week, like I say, if not some days some more. On location, just cleaning up the building. Once again, because we're independent, anything that breaks, anything that needs cleaning, any kind of mess. That's all us. That's all we got to do. So it can be a lot. Like it can be like any form of mess or any kind of problem. It comes down to us because there's no one else. We're not a big company. We can't call on maintenance or cleaners because I don't think we'd ever want to, because it's independent. Like it's our thing. So I guess it's kind of selfish, but it's like we don't want it to get tainted. Almost. We love introducing new staff and stuff into the mix, and they all get the same treatment. But it's that kind of thing. We don't want to start like outsourcing, making the company too big or anything.
Is it the same for the other independents in Reading as well?
So as far as I'm aware, like it's the same kind of thing where like everything that's done is done by them. I don't know explicitly, but as far as I'm aware, all the approaches, like everything's done by them because you're looking after your baby. Unfortunately, the picture, obviously you can't hear it if you're listening, but the picture on the screen of our window's actually got a big crack down the middle of it, and it's been there for years. We're supposed to be getting that fixed, but I don't think we're going to be at this location for long enough to worry about that.
Sounds like somebody tried to escape and couldn't.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't know, yeah, crazy. Yeah, we've had some had some weird people to do like just stand outside the building and hitting it for no reason, which is weird. You want to escape out, not escape in.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite
maybe that's
the
customers
opposite.
who really want to play and we didn't have a booking.
Maybe it's a warm up. Maybe.
Yeah, but a lot of it's just calls and stuff, admin bits, and just making sure we have the staff and going in and tweaking stuff, fixing stuff, and in personal time, just writing up new plans for escape rooms and playing them as well. For fun, like we do like a lot of swaps between other companies, playing I'll play your room, you play our room and stuff, just for fun. So yeah.
Have you ever had any really memorable moments when you've been spectating other people as they play? Is there anything that really stands out to you?
Oh well, that story earlier about the younger the really small group, they smashed it. So we've had like we've had stuff. So for our Vampire Slayers room, we once had this team dress up in full Blade-esque gear, like wooden stakes. I was like, that's pretty sharp, and like all their gear. So that was really cool. Back before COVID, we don't really get drunk teams anymore, but pre-COVID, we get drunk teams. And in our terms and conditions, we have the full right, even if you one drink in, if we decide it's the case, even if we can decide to not let you play the room. Because if we said you're going to break the room or hurt yourselves, we can't afford it. But there's been a few times where the team's been drunk and you're just like, especially if it's me or the owner, because we know if anyone's going to have, if anything happens, it's us who has to deal with it. I lower like the other staff, I don't want they'll turn away drunk teams because it's not fair on them. But me and Tom, we don't really care. Well, we care, but we know it's only us who are going to have to clean it up.
Yep.
We've had drunk teams go in, and one of our rooms has got a fake bathroom in there. And I remember this one time, this gentleman, they're in the room and he started unbuckling his belt, and he could barely stand. But I was like, you know what? It's like a birthday. I don't want to ruin. And he started getting his belt undone to use the toilet, and I sprinted into the room, just like, please do not. He's like, I'm just joking. I was like, I can't afford to take the risk. I can't. So like stuff like that. We had Reading Festival goers come at one point a couple of years ago, completely caked in mud.
Really?
So caked in mud that they just littered mud throughout the entire. I mean, it was not even a funny story. That's just frustrating. But I just remember it being his team completely caked in mud, played, and the entire building was littered in mud. Like we hoovered it like at least 12 times, and a week later we were still finding like festival mud. Who goes to Reading Festival and thinks escape room time? We had a proposal in the game as well.
Really? That's
Yeah,
nice.
for one of our rooms, we had like a couple, and the guy came in beforehand, be like, "How can I plan this? How can I do it surprising? Can we hide like the ring in like a puzzle somewhere?"
That's brilliant.
And in fact, we gave him a walkthrough of the game before, so they make sure they would succeed. Because the room's difficult, as I said, team of two. The rooms are very hard as a team of two, but they had to play as a team of two because. So we had to tell him the answers, so they definitely escaped.
Yeah.
And they did escape, and they proposed, got it all on camera, which is like, I think that might even be on our Facebook.
Really?
That.
That's lovely.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like little fun, memorable moments. Aside from that, I don't think we've had any crazy things. We've had people like faint in the horror room a couple times, but yeah, aside from that, like pretty standard. You of course get arguments quite a lot. I'd say some days it's a bit like Jeremy Kyle live.
Really?
The only scary thing is though, like if there's an argument in the room,
Yeah.
like I'm security Steve, like I'm this little skinny guy, I can't do anything. Like there's been times where I'm like, wow, if this argument goes any further, what can I do? Luckily they're locked in the room, so that's fine.
Like 1-on-1, just leave it to them, leave it to the bros.
Oh, we've heard some crazy things. We've heard people be like, well, this is why I cheated on you, or
Really?
that's why Gary's not your son. And I'm like,
Oh,
whoa,
wow.
crazy.
You're right. I think it probably does sound like Jeremy Kyle.
Yeah. People forget we're watching. So and I think, don't get me wrong, some places do run like multiple games at the same time, so they can't listen the whole time. So some places like you have to ask for clues. We listen the entire time, so we get a really good gist because we want to know the team. We really want to make the experience tailored to them. But the problem is sometimes they just don't realise that they're being listened to. So there's sometimes where we've had couples go in and when they're inside the game, then like out of nowhere they're in like different rooms, and then like the different couples start like holding hands and making out, and you're like, wait, it's like four couples, or this is like a cheating situation I've like watched, or I had a team of we had a group, I think it might have been like some kind of social like elders group,
Right.
all like 68-year-old ladies, and at the end, the minute they got in the room, they're like, oh, that gentleman had a nice bottom, and I was like, oh no, like I'm listening, but didn't
The
know.
squats are working.
And I was like, my nan, please stop. But like, yeah, crazy. Like, aside from that, nothing horrendous. We've not had like any like real big disasters or anything, which is nice.
If you guys are kind of the main members of staff, so you don't have a dedicated security team, I suppose that's an absolute blessing that nothing has ever happened, touch wood, as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we've only. I say we've had to kick a few teams out before, if the team's come drunk or intoxicated in any way.
How do you usually go about that? So say if there's one team who a bit rowdy, a little bit too much, and there's a genuine risk they're going to ruin one of the rooms.
It's honestly my biggest nightmare. I've in fact, we had an incident fairly recently that I won't go into massive detail in, but it's horrible because we don't want to do it because we know the customer's going to be upset, and we don't want to do it because we love doing this. Like, it's our job, but we love watching the teams, and we want the teams to do it because we don't want to turn to. And it's the very worst resort is kicking out because we're doing it because we generally believe it's going to endanger you, the customer, going to hurt yourself. You're going to damage the room, and you could and even the situation can be traumatic for the staff member. For example, a lot of people work in retail, and if you deal with the wrong customer, it can ruin your day. And a lot of our staff we have here, it's the same thing, and very big advocate for mental health and stuff. And I know it can be extremely stressful and make people anxious when they have to do these things. But yeah, sometimes we've had teams who have been particularly drunk. If they're really drunk to the point where they're stumbling around, or for any reason they've they're vomiting in the toilet or something. At that point, you've kind of got to draw a line and be like, I don't think this is in anyone's best interest. I think that the thing we hope it doesn't happen very often because we do our absolute best to try and really never. I think in the 7 years of doing it, there's only been a handful of occasions we've ever had to not let a team play. Of course, lateness is a whole different thing, but in terms of intoxication or aggression or anything. There's only been a very few times I've actually had to go into a game and say to the team, please don't do this. If they said inappropriate things about the host running the game over the microphones and stuff, or just been treating them just terribly. The main thing is you just kind of got to speak. We speak to the team and just try and be as real as possible. Just be like, can you see why we're doing this? We don't want to do this, but we hope you understand why. Or it might be a case of the best thing you can do is leave at this point. We're not going to, we've never had to call the police or forcibly kick anyone out. Most of the time people understand because I think they kind of know they're pushing it. And we try to make it really obvious with our briefings before the game, what can end the game early. And if we know a team is a little bit tipsy when they come in, we will make it very evident, you shouldn't have done that. But, I quite often, if a team's a little bit tipsy, if it's a hen do or stag do, I will make a joke at the beginning. If one of them's talking about drinking, I'll be like, well, I know you haven't drunk because if you've read the terms and conditions, you couldn't have drunk, to play this, or I could kick you out. And they all go, yeah, we haven't drunk. And there's one drunk friend at the end who's like, no, we have drunk. And they shut them up. So we'll do our absolute best. But yeah, at some point, especially if it's not me or the owner, if it's one of the other staff members, we don't want them dealing with that. They're paid just to do their job. They're not paid to be a security guard, and because if it's one person running a room, they're doing everything. It's not fair on that staff member to have to be security and deal with that. So yeah, we're strict, but we haven't had to do it very much because customers have been very understanding. We've been very lucky for that. In most cases, they've been understanding at least.
But I think with the context of obviously being an independent basically and having to do all the roles yourself, it makes sense because this is effectively your baby.
Yeah,
and the last thing you want is somebody coming in and putting you in a position where you feel it's an awkward conversation, isn't it? You paid for this experience. I'm enjoying myself by showing you around, but you've done this, so you're going to have to leave.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the real thing, especially with lateness, is where we get a lot of problems because a lot of people are like, just hold it for us for half an hour, be there. It's kind of yeah, but we got a booking here in an hour, and the whole experience is you have 60 minutes in the room. We can't just start messing times around because the next team who's got 60 minutes in the room. Time, I can't just make more time. Time is it's a very punctual thing, which is funny because I was almost late today. But yeah, and there have been cases where I've had calls and incidents have happened, and we have some, we've made amends. If it's a quiet day, sometimes we can help you out. Sometimes we've been able to move bookings, so we quite often will move them. And quite often, if we do move, we pretty much always give. I think on our website it does say, if you're late, no refund. We can't do refunds because unless it's a good couple of days, just because the money side of it is actually sort of ridiculous, on our end, how that works. But the most the most thing we do the most is if people can't attend and they're late, we do offer that we can reschedule the game, but we have to pay. We give them a fee they have to pay, and that fee is just to cover the staff member on site. Because of course, if you've booked a room and you can't go and you're going to book it for another day, you're taking up the space of a different paying customer. So,
in terms of kind of other escape rooms you visited up and down the UK, are there any that really stand out to you?
I really liked Control Alt Escape. There's a company down in Kent. They had a really cool space room. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm not sure it's there anymore. But all of their rooms were really cool. In Crawley, there's this really really cool company called Hounds. And they're a pretty new company. I'm pretty sure they opened up around around lockdown time. But Hounds just blow me away in like the most recent years in terms of like escape rooms. And more so the fact like hearing like a new company and then going there and everything from the waiting area to some of the best, probably the best games hosts I've seen in the UK. And then the rooms were perfect, and just that combination of that, the host really is just as, like you say, the host is not only just, but sometimes more important than the room itself. They smashed that out. So yeah, so I'd say I'd say definitely Hounds, Control Alt Escape, Salisbury as well. Salisbury, the Live Escape down there. They've got a couple of really cool rooms. They have one called Spectre, which see, I don't want to spoil the game. I don't want to say why, but it's got a very the Spectre room has got a very different start, and it really gets you excited from the very beginning because how exciting the beginning is. And then even during the game, just so one of their other games that they're currently building, they've got a really cool room opening up that they're building still. And I'm so excited to go back. They've got a great location in the building. They've got, and they're also loved. I'm very biased as well because I also, you make really good friends and stuff around. There are so many. It's difficult. I'm mainly going for ones outside of Reading because all the ones in Reading are also fantastic, like really good games. But there's some ones, UK ones. For me, like my favourite ones have been, let's say, out of the UK thus far, just because I've realised, and I think a big reason is because a room doesn't become good and doesn't have to be good to have a lot of space. It's just more when you have a lot of space, you can just do crazier stuff. And as we all know, in the UK, rent is pretty expensive. Whereas like somewhere like the Netherlands, Athens, Poland, Hungary, you can get a lot more space. And what I've noticed as well in the UK, at least, you kind of want to be, not in all cases, but quite often, you want to be near a town centre. So I'll say the same as we are. And you tend to not get as much business if you're in the middle of nowhere. Now, there are some exceptions, like, Tully's Farm, they're in like the middle of nowhere, and there's not the middle of nowhere, but they're in farmland, and they do very, very well. But in like the Netherlands, Holland and that, they're, I think we were driving like half an hour out of Amsterdam to the middle of nowhere, and that's where like some of the best games in the world are. And that kind of proved like, wow, you really, as long as you make a good game, people will travel for it. So I think if it wasn't for rent and stuff, I think having more space makes it easier. But they're the ones in England that I think are really good. Those. Mm-hmm.
Just out of interest, when you go to the Netherlands or Hungary or Athens, is there a bit of a language barrier?
Not so far. I think pretty much it's pretty common for the UK to expect everyone to speak English. And any kind of like Western world, we expect everything to be in English. And I think unfortunately that's kind of became a thing. Of course, some places there might be. So I played a room in. I have played a room in Budapest that had riddles, and they just translated the riddles one to one, and it made no sense. Because I think the words didn't make sense at all. But thankfully, we had someone in our group who was was Hungarian, so they were able to solve it for us. Most of the time, yes. Now, obviously, I'd say escape rooms. The birthplace of them was in Hungary, like it was in Budapest. But then I think the other side of the world, like I think obviously they also have a huge market for it in China. And I think if you went to China, it'd be very hard, I think, to find English translations. They probably definitely could, but from what I've heard from friends who have played there, and I think as well, like China don't need to cater for the Western world. They can do. But no, pretty much never had a problem with, especially if you go to rooms that are like high ratings and stuff, they want to make their rooms open to everyone, so tourists and stuff, because when you get your room that big and famous and stuff, like I dream to one day have a game like on that level. You're going to make it so it's accessible to everyone and stuff. So no, I've not really encountered it much, which is nice, which is lucky. But I think sometimes you can also sometimes make rooms very little language. So I think a few of our games, even our games, I have like very. I say the owner, the designer, he is Hungarian, so he used very little in some of the other. There's not a lot of like word puzzles, wordy, but there are some. We've never really had a problem like ever, like people playing who don't speak very much English. We've had some teams who only one English speaker and the rest, and they've been able to solve them because we tried. So you can design a room so it can cater to anyone without making big changes. But I have heard horror stories where people have played places and not horror stories because they have no reason to cater for English speakers. But yeah, and they've had a rough time. They've had an hour of just, can I use my phone for Google Translate? And the host is like, no.
Yeah.
Suffer.
Must be a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, you're somebody who's done, over the years, I'm sure, many, many, many escape rooms. Is there kind of a professional, kind of, for lack of a better word, league you can get into? Or are there any professional kind of escape room people, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's like a league as far as I'm aware, so there are so the most famous group I know is I think S2. So a lot of enthusiasts hit, and there's big enthusiast group pages where you can go on there, and everyone who plays enthusiast will recommend their favorite ones and stuff, or ones they didn't like as much. And S2 are pretty well known because I think they've played they're just pretty much every at least owner and stuff knows about them because they've played so many. And they are very good. They smash records all the time. But there's probably others, and I'm sure it might also be a case of different countries have their own ones who are very notable. It's weird because I think even if you have played a lot of rooms, it doesn't always mean you're going to get the record. It doesn't always. I mean, don't get me wrong, they very often they smash the gates, but they're not all of our rooms they've got the record for and stuff. Because I think that's why it's kind of hard, because I don't know how, if there was any kind of actual league, say, or a competition, just not Olympic level, but you know what I mean, a competition. I don't know how you'd measure it unless you have because even in a spectator sport or anyone, because every game is different. Your game can be different just by how you're feeling on the day. Depending on what you've done on the day can change your game, because if just on that day you're feeling different. So I think it's difficult with metric. I think the enthusiast groups on Facebook and that are the best ways where people come together and get to know each other through that. Because obviously and also as owners, we speak to each other and be like, oh, you had this team. Oh yeah, I recognise that team because we were speaking to them. And we've made friends with lots of teams throughout the years and stuff. I think you tend to the biggest one is you kind of get to know each other through owners to owners and stuff, and people in the industry to industry, and then you kind of know each other because obviously if you work in that thing, you've played quite a lot, so you kind of talk about each other. But no, not that I know of really there being any big groups, but names get thrown around. I think the best resource that I think people come together for are the enthusiast groups, or things like Escape the Review, which are review sites specifically for escape rooms. And if you want to do look for escape rooms, use Escape the Review. They have a map that has coloured padlocks across the entire world.
Really?
I went to Australia and they had covered the map there as well. And I was like, well, you've been to everywhere, and you can see reviews from anyone on there, the people who run it as well, and owners can recommend it, and that's why we've got some awards and stuff from there. And there's loads of other places as well. I find TripAdvisor sometimes. I think as well with these enthusiast groups and things like TripAdvisor and any review site as well, when choosing a room and deciding if you should play it, sometimes I think the best thing to keep in mind is people usually only really say things if they really enjoyed it and they smashed it, or they didn't enjoy it. So I feel if you ever go to play a room, just play it if you want to. Don't worry too much, and that's why I avoid the enthusiast groups, because I don't want to know anything about a game. I want to have my full opinion on it. I don't want to. It's like when you go to see a film. If you see the scores for it, you're going to be a bit biased and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Say you've got a huge set, you've got an unlimited budget. What would be your dream escape room? Oh,
I already know. I've been designing my magnus opus for a year or so. Actually, not long after I played the room in the Netherlands, that kind of made my whole scrapbook of designs went, oh no, my brain was so thinking on the small side. Problem is, I don't want to talk about it because that's ideas.
Yeah.
And the amount of times I've been hanging out with other people in the industry and had a few too many drinks and been like, oh no, I've definitely said some things I wish I didn't say. Yeah. And in fact, I think there was actually this one time we were talking to someone about they were talking about they had this location they didn't want anymore, they wanted to get rid of it, and I think me and the boss were pretty drunk, and we were like, oh, why would you get rid of it? It's such a perfect location, it's so good at this and that, and we were like, oh, we should take, we'll take it off your hands. And the time they're like, yeah, sure. And then a week later they're like, I think we're going to keep it, and we were like, damn, we shouldn't have been so.
Maybe you're onto something.
Yeah. If I had a limited budget, for me the biggest thing would be getting space. I definitely would want to do something that's big space and much more leaning into immersive experience, but still capped at 6 players maximum. That can be done between 2 to 6 players. Immersive experience with a lot of wow effects and stuff. And I've definitely got themes and settings that I like the ideas in particular of. For me, I'm very, and I don't know if it's because it's a very topical thing at the moment, and it's just happened that if I ever had that kind of budget or stuff, now would be the perfect time to do it. But I very much love the idea of what do you call it, the multiverse kind of thing. I'm not just talking about like Marvel and stuff like that, but I mean like
Einstein.
Think of like Back to the Future, but your DeLorean doesn't go back and forth; it goes sideways. Like it goes like to anything. Because then I think for me at least, the idea is that you can make an escape room where you have no idea what's going to be in the next door. If you have secret rooms for that matter, because not every escape room needs secret doors, but you could just have doors that can go to anywhere you want, and you are not bound by the physics of your world. You can have one door that leads you to, I don't know. Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once? Is that
the one about Stephen Hawking?
No, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a basically a multi-dimensional film, but it's basically it does everything from like the main character goes to a universe where all the characters have like sausages for fingers, and it's just it makes no sense. But it's just because like you can just do anything. I think there's one universe where all the characters are just stones and they can't move. And I just love the idea if you have this room where no one can predict what you can do in the next room, you can wow them by just doing the strangest stuff. You could take the room next door could just be a room where just the entire world is upside down, to a room where dinosaurs wear top hats and drink cups of tea. Like for me, that's like you can surprise the team by not knowing, and that's what I'd want to do. I also love horror and Black Mirror. I wouldn't want to make a horror room, but I'd like to make it unsettling. So I do like the idea of making the room extremely meta. So that's what I would do. I would do something very meta, a bit creepy, just by nature of not knowing what's real and what isn't, and making it a bit funny. Multi-dimensional, that's where I go.
It's a bit of a random kind of subject to move to, but it does link. Just out of interest, are you familiar with American Dad, the TV program?
Yeah, TV show, yeah.
What you just described, it was almost the character Roger for me, because he can be anything.
Yeah.
He is a writer's dream, because like I say, he can be this character, it can be that character, and it gives the writers total flexibility to create a brand new story in the very next episode. Yeah. So that's I kind of get that impression of that. Again, an element of flexibility. Reminds me of Interstellar as well.
Yeah.
The idea of many, many different kind of dimensions.
It's actually funny you say Interstellar, because there is I won't say what it is in particular, but there's a scene from that I want to replicate using so much special effects that really blows customers' minds, and I've been like really thinking about it for a long time. One scene in particular in that film, which when I watched it was like, that's terrifying. I want to make that real, and if I had the money, and I really think like it's very doable. I'm just waiting. That's the magnet. I don't know if I'll ever be able to, but if I can, I'm really passionate about that.
In terms of Escape Reading, where can the audience find you guys?
So we you can find us like literally in Escape Reading. So we've got the location in Broad Street Mall, so by the Hexagon in the town centre, and our other location is on Audley Street. On the Oxford Road, by Big Tesco. Everyone knows Big Tesco. We don't do walk-ins, don't just turn up. But yeah, we take like phone calls and stuff. But our website, escapereading.co.uk, easy. We have an Instagram, we have a TikTok, but that's basically dead, so don't look it up. We weren't very good at TikTok. But we have an Instagram where we usually post all of our updates, and we have like a Facebook. And all of the Instagram, Facebook, numbers you'll find on the website. Everyone that replies on like TripAdvisor, it's all like myself and the owner. In fact, if you look on TripAdvisor, all response to reviews, it's actually just my TripAdvisor. I didn't even realise. I was like,
right.
Oh, it's not even using the work TripAdvisor.
Yeah, it's personal.
It's actually got my personal one replying to all of them. Like, obviously, it still says like manager, but I'm just like, oh wow, but I like that, because I like that. I'm very like entwined with it, so I don't mind that my personal life and the company blending together. But yeah, so like Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, and just our website, and give us a call. Any questions? Give us a call. It'll probably be me answering. If you call really early, I'll answer, but I'll be tired because we don't really have a cut-off point. But if we don't answer in the early morning or night, we are asleep. We should set ourselves work hours, but when you're independent, when you're awake, you're working, I guess.
Yeah, well, like I say, Jacob, I've absolutely loved this. It's been a really, really good chat. And to anybody at home who is interested, Escape Reading, again, Facebook, Instagram. And again, Jacob, thank you very much for coming in.
No, I loved it. Thank you very much for having me. I love talking about what I love doing.
Thank you very much.